Hello, my name is Richard Pitkethly. I am LawWorks Head of Learning and Practice. I'm going to talk briefly about the rules which apply to university-based pro bono clinics, those who coordinate and work for them, undertaking casework, including student volunteers, as well as those who have responsibility for supervision. This brief video is intended as an overview only. It is not even a proper introduction to the topics mentioned. Rather, it is a sort of checklist of things to consider from a regulatory point of view when volunteering, with a little bit more detail concerning supervision. The regulatory topics mentioned throughout are dealt with in more detail elsewhere, and I will refer to some further external sources of information towards the end of this presentation. The reason why it is necessary to have regard to rules which normally govern law firms and solicitors in the context of student volunteering in university clinics is that those solicitors who organise and assist you are themselves subject to the rules as individuals. The rules, in effect, require regulated individuals to ensure that the pro bono clinic where they work or volunteer are in many respects set up and run as though they were law firms. This means that they must ensure that legal services supplied to the public are of a professional standard. Therefore, if you take away one thing from this short video, I would hope that it is that clinics pro bono casework is legal practice in the real world. Just turning very briefly to the main sources of the rules. The main statute is the Legal Services Act 2007, which creates a system of oversight by regulatory bodies. Those bodies are the Legal Services Board, the Law Society of England and Wales, the Solicitors Regulation Authority, and the Legal Ombudsman. The main source of rules governing the way clinics operate is contained in the SRA's regulation entitled Standards and Regulations. You can access the regulations via the SRA's website. Both the SRA's website and the Law Society's website contain very good guidance on all of the issues that I'm going to refer to in this brief video. The regulations themselves contain rules governing who can deliver legal services to the public and how they must do that. They contain rules and guidance regarding issues such as client care, by which I mean the formal and practical steps that must be in place before actively working on clients' matters. So, for example, a client care letter, the requirement to identify the person before you, the member of public, your client, and such other matters. In addition, there's client confidentiality and disclosure, conflicts of interests, the requirement to hold a practicing certificate for certain individuals. The regulation also includes the Code of Conduct, which includes information about service and competence. And finally, complaints handling. Those running your university clinics will provide you with more detailed information concerning all of these topics. LawWorks has various resources on these topics which can be found on our website. In addition to SRA regulations that I've already mentioned, clinics are also subject to certain rules concerning the processing of personal data. And many of you will no doubt be familiar with this concept at least. It is a topic which is covered in more detail by Vicky Ling in a separate video talk covering the Data Protection Act 2018 and the General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR. And I don't intend to refer any further to that issue or those sources of rules. It is important to stress that anyone may provide legal advice. However, some legal advice is restricted to authorised individuals. You don't have to be a practicing lawyer or even legally qualified to provide legal advice. Such legal advice would be subject to the law of contract and tort only, not the body of rules administered by the SRA governing the activities of solicitors. It is the fact of being a solicitor and holding yourself out as a solicitor which draws in the burdens of the SRA's regulations. Most university clinics are not-for-profit entities, which means they are not directly subject to the SRA's administration or regulation. However, those who hold themselves out as legal practitioners, in whatever context, subject themselves, as well as in effect the organisations through which they provide those legal services, to the SRA's regulations. The reason for this is simple, and it's consumer protection. So if a member of the public believes she is being advised by a solicitor, because a solicitor has encouraged that belief, then the services received will be subject to SRA regulation, for example, as if they were being supplied by a law firm. University-based clinics are rightly proud of the professional legal services they provide and advertise this accordingly. Hence, solicitors working within them will be subject to the SRA regulation, and clinics themselves will have taken on, in practice, the burden of operating along the lines of a law firm, say. For practical purposes, the regulations which have the greatest impact on student volunteers are those concerning the supervision of individuals supplying legal services to the public. It is through supervision that your supervisor will ensure that the SRA regulations are adhered to. Because the regulations make no distinction between work supplied for free and work supplied commercially, university-based clinics face a particular challenge. They are as much about teaching as they are providers of legal services. The lawyer that you are today is very different to the lawyer you will become upon qualification into a legal practice employment role. You have not had the formal training of a trainee, for example, at a firm of solicitors, or you are not at the stage of a newly qualified or otherwise junior solicitor. University clinics, in this sense, have a unique challenge in that, on the one hand, they must ensure a professional standard of service comparable with commercial legal services, and on the other, they set out to provide students with real-world experience of legal practice. The way university clinics manage these challenges is through supervision. And bear this in mind, that even experienced lawyers are subject to supervision. In fact, experienced lawyers often discuss points with colleagues, including more experienced colleagues, and very often, obviously, whilst ensuring the confidentiality of their clients' matter. The reason that they voluntarily do this is because they recognise that it is not possible to become a competent lawyer all on your own. Indeed, the Law Society's optimistically entitled Great Quality of Life Survey in 2007 found that good supervision was the most important factor in motivating and retaining staff among law firms. In this way, supervision represents a fantastic opportunity to get up and close to the legal practice casework in the real world and to develop your skills as lawyers. Good supervision often looks like a conversation between lawyers. As student volunteers, you can expect the level of supervision to be intense. You will receive regular and frequent feedback. Generally, your input will not be placed before clients until reviewed by your supervisor, with changes and improvements to your work just being the reality. Getting used to this will stand you in good stead for legal practice once you have graduated and begun your training contract. Supervision in practice can be bracing, especially towards the beginning of your career. University clinic supervision will be undertaken in a more pedagogical way and will be likely to be somewhat less bracing, I would have thought. Throughout the supervision you receive, you will be invited to learn from your actions, understand your strengths, and focus on efforts to improve. You'll be encouraged to acknowledge your own mistakes and the learning opportunities that arise from them. Supervision may be in the form of formal scheduled feedback meetings as well as ad hoc catch-up meetings, if you like. However, you should always feel able to approach your supervisor with questions or concerns at any time. The point is to find solutions to problems and take responsibility for your own self-development. Do bear in mind that communication of advice to clients who may be vulnerable requires a great deal of supervision. Developing the ability to speak effectively to lay clients of all backgrounds, sometimes presenting with particular challenges or disability, is a real skill. Listen and learn from your supervisors to develop this skill. Effective supervision ensures that you will be provided with sufficient information to enable you to undertake tasks effectively. It ensures that you know what results are expected as well as the deadlines. Feel encouraged to exercise initiative and ask questions and to receive guidance without interference or possibly pampering. Supervision during the period of COVID-19 creates its own challenges, especially for university-based clinics. The Law Society has issued separate guidance for law firms at this time, the principles of which apply to clinics. Additionally, the SRA has issued a practice note on supervision during COVID-19. The reality is that at this time, a great deal of legal services work, including supervision, is taking place remotely. The SRA has indicated that it intends to be as accommodating as possible. In short, university clinics that operate in part or in whole online at this time are permitted to supervise work remotely, provided reasonable measures are in place. Those reasonable measures will include the protection of clients' personal information being stored or processed electronically. These arrangements can be onerous, technically challenging and expensive, in which case some university clinics will not feel able to operate remotely at this time. Your clinic coordinator will provide you with any information about remote working and or supervision should this form part of your clinic's operations at this time. Finally, as I promised at the top of this talk, some further information, sources of further information. Please do check out LawWorks' website, as well as the websites of the Law Society and the SRA. You will have access throughout your library services to online sources of information, such as LexisNexis and Practical Law. These are, in addition, excellent sources of further information about all the issues that I referred to of a regulatory sort. Lastly, I wish to wish you the very best of luck in your voluntary roles. Thank you.